Speaking of the draft, G, that's where we are staying for our next topic. But a quick word from FanDuel first. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if their first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to join today. That is FanDuel.com/UCSS for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Yesterday, Travis Hunter had his NFL Combine press conference, and he said something pretty interesting. We've seen back and forth. Is he a receiver? Is he a defensive back? Andrew Berry said he likes him at receiver, and Hunter was asked about that. Steve, take tag board. He said, quote, "They say nobody has ever done it before. The way I do it. I tell them, I'm just different. I want to play 100% of snaps at cornerback and 100% of snaps at receiver," which he did do at Colorado. G, you're an NFL draft expert. I know you talked about Travis Hunter at length on the Ultimate Brown show today. It's a two-part question, which I know is not great, but I'm going to ask it. Is it possible to play 100% of snaps at both positions? And if it is, does that make Travis Hunter worthy of being the #2 overall pick, considering you'd be filling two holes with one?
No. There's no way anybody can play 100% of snaps. You can play a high percentage of the snaps. I do believe he played the best that anybody could attempt to be at 100% snaps in Colorado. I thought he did it at a high level. By the way, his conditioning is second to none. He takes care of his body almost like in a Myles Garrett, LeBron James way. But I will say the reason why he's not able to do it is if you watch a documentary, I watch him stuff on Travis Hunter just to figure out where he lands in terms of the athletes and freak athletes. So he's already right now, Coach Prime already has him not practicing like 2 or 3 days out of the week.
Yeah.
Coach Prime does not even require him to do any of those things during the week, just so he can get his body together to play that many snaps. Now, you divide that and you look at what happened in college and you extrapolate that over a long period of time, and now you talk about the pros, it's different. If he's going to play corner and play nickel, he's going to have to come up and tackle people. He's in the run fit. Ask Greg Newsome how he like playing nickel. It ain't that easy. Yeah. Wide receiver, you're going to be running a lot of routes. You're going to be, listen, can he do it at a high level? Sure. Can he play 75% of the snaps? I actually think he probably could.
Yeah.
He can play 75% of the snaps. So I don't think he's going to do it, but I do think that I would draft him because I feel like he is a bona fide superstar at both positions.
So you want the Browns to take Hunter?
No.
Oh, I thought you said you would draft him.
No. If there's no Browns in a quarterback situation.
Okay, so you're not even thinking this way.
No.
Okay.
Unless somebody trade up and take all the quarterbacks, no, I'm not going to do it.
Okay. No, he cannot do it. He is lighter than Denzel Ward. Let that sink in for a second. He is lighter than Denzel Ward. I know he did it at the collegiate level. He played in the worst of the power conferences in college football, in my view. I mean, that's debatable. Some might say, the Big 12 is better than the ACC. For my money, he didn't do it in the SEC. He didn't do it in the Big 10. And for me, those are the two conferences I would have to see him do it at. And even then, he's still playing against kids. At the next level, he's playing against grown-ass men that want nothing more than to knock his block off. He suffered a lacerated liver on an awful cheap shot. I think that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Last year, he missed time with a bad shoulder. Mm-hmm. He injured it in October. He came back and injured it the very next week. He didn't finish back-to-back games because of the shoulder. So it's far too strenuous. When you look at his frame, he's way too slight. Could he build on that on his frame? He could, but if he goes up to 205, he's not as effective as a corner. What makes him effective as a corner is he's Denzel Ward size. Those are things that will probably hinder him from being an A-plus receiver one. This is what I think that a team should do with him, and probably not the Browns because I don't think they're going to take him. I do love him as a corner. I think he can be an excellent Denzel Ward type cover corner. Not as good as Denzel, but I think he can be a very good cover corner in the NFL. You want to use him on offense because he's a weapon. The problem is when he's on the field, everybody on the defense, you might as well spotlight him when he's on the field because he's not going to be there to be a decoy. They're going to him, and now he's going to get doubled. So that might limit his effectiveness. Maybe you use him 5 to 10 offensive snaps. I did find it interesting that Mike Vrabel took a whole lot of interest in Travis Hunter at the Combine. Mike was not a two-way player by any stretch of the imagination. Troy Brown was more of a two-way player because he played more snaps offensively or defensively than Mike ever did offensively. Mike was a gadget, gimmick guy around the goal line. That was it. That's not how this guy's going to be used. So I found it interesting that Mike was really interested in him because if anybody knows the value of a guy that can go both ways, it would be Mike Vrabel. But I don't see any world at all where he's doing 100% or even 75% of the snaps both ways. It's just a different game.
I would start him at a receiver, and he would play all the snaps of receiver. And the down that he would play corner is third down. When it's third down, he's on the field.
So you'd use him as a nickel.
But he wouldn't be playing the nickel. He'd be playing
he'd
outside.
Be the extra back, but you'd put him on their best receiver.
He's on the best. He's one of my best guys outside.
That's
and the great part about it is, if I do that, I'm limiting his his exposure to run plays. If he's in my base packages, they can run the ball. They can do a lot of things.
Yeah, you don't want this guy coming up and run support.
No, I don't want none of that. But what I can do is I can have him run around all over the place. I can even have him blitz off the corner on third down, and I'm going to use him in special teams, punt return.
I think that's the way he'll be used, exactly what you just said.
I remember Chris Gamble doing it at Ohio State. I covered that team. It was Dustin's teammate. Played both ways. Played 100 and some snaps every game. It was the most remarkable athletic feat, one of the most I've ever seen. And he talked about he needed to sleep like 12, 13 hours that night. He was in bed it was a noon game. He was in bed by 7 o'clock, and he slept till like 9, 10 a.m. the next day. I mean, just think about the exertion and the physical
mentally
toll.
Too.
Yeah, and to be able
There's no break.
All the assignments. 100%. Nobody plays 100%. Like based on personnel packages on offense, even elite receivers, the very best of the game, don't play 100% of the snaps. So that right there throws that out. I tend to agree with G. I do think that there's a way to use him. Gamble is strictly defense in the NFL because he wasn't a very good offensive player, frankly.
Right.
He could get away with it at Ohio State in college, but Chris was not an NFL caliber receiver, so he was strictly a cornerback with the Panthers and had a fine career. But Hunter, I think, is a better, and Andrew Berry said they look at him as a receiver more than a corner. I know Hunter back a couple weeks ago said he was coming as a cornerback.
Yeah.
But Berry said the Browns view him more as a receiver. So I think that tells you the level of how good he is on both sides, and you want to be able to take advantage of that. And I think there are ways to take advantage of that. But if I'm a defense and he's at corner, I'm running right at him every single time.
Every single time.
That's why.
Now, if it's 3rd and 11, you're not.
Right. When that base
and that's why you
come
put him out there when it's 3rd and long, definite passing situations. But you do not want that guy
First
coming up
and
on
10, I'm running at him.
And that's why he'll never be out. I just can't imagine there's a scenario where he's on the field on 1st and 10 and 2nd and 7. That makes no sense.
He's going to play, or 2 minute. He's in your 2 minute package, and you even with 2 minute, you had to temper that because they're running all those plays in the 2 minute drill. You got to keep lining up, running down the field. What is he going to be opposite and coming back to be a receiver? So I think there are ways to use him. I think the teams that utilize him the best will get the most out of him if they're creative and they understand it. And look, even if he's great and he does this for 3-4 years. That's tops.
That's the other point.
It'll wear you out.
You're getting that off
3 years is like 6
tops.
years now.
Yeah, this is a very short-term experiment.
Yeah.
And then you're going to figure out which side of the ball he helps you more.
Better.
That's why I do like the fact that the Browns just came out and said, no, we view him as a wide receiver.
But honestly, if you like him as a corner, it makes sense to use him as a corner and as a gadget guy on the offensive side where he's only out there for a handful of plays, third down. We talk about third down on defense, third down on offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He'd be a great change of pace guy.
But you could also do it flip. You could use him as your primary receiver, and he's primarily an offensive player, But when you get into situations where it's 2 minute and you know they're going to be passing, or you're in 3rd and long passing down situations only, throw them out there and use them more as a gadget for that.
You were a defensive guy. I would think that you would want more consistency with your top 2 corners and your nickel. I could see him as the dime. But you know, like if you've got guys that you've been counting on.
Yeah, and they all have egos, and now all of a sudden you're going to tap your number 1 and say, hey, we got a wide receiver coming out to do your job.
That's why I don't know. I think it's better if he plays defense full time and you use him sparingly on offense.
You see what we're doing right here? This is the reason why people panic and take people off the board, because you got an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. You guys are putting a plan together. You're playing a really good team. You're going to be saying, well, listen, I need him out here on 2nd and 3rd down because we're going against the Bengals. They got 2 guys monster. You're like, well, listen, you know, we got Jerry Jeudy. We got 2 guys out. We need him to be running with the 1s and 2s. And now you're a head coach trying to figure out where.
I just think it's easier to have a gadget guy on the offensive side than it is on the defensive side.
It is. I agree with that. Every year I like to try to pick who's this year's Aaron Rodgers. I'm not predicting that he's going to drop to 22, but I think if there is a player that could sit around longer, it could be him. And the reason I say that is because when he tells teams he considers himself a cornerback, he's almost taking out of the mix the idea that you're going to use him offensively. So I ask this, if you're just grading him as a defensive player, is he the 3rd pick?
Well, it goes to the value. Like, you got to think, how many? If I got a corner, right? Do you value corner over edge rusher?
Yeah, but when is a corner the 3rd pick?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like, that's what I'm saying.
It's hard to find.
And that's why
Jeff Okudah was the 3rd pick a few years ago.
It's
very rare.
Charles Woodson.
But Charles Woodson was a unicorn.
He's a unicorn.
Bull's not here. I can use that term.
And Charles Woodson.
And listen, if Charles Woodson was in this draft, he'd be the same thing. I think they would take him high. But because. And, you know, it's a long shot guess. It's just like, who's the dark horse? I could see him sitting around past 7 and maybe even into 10.
But I think there's teams out there that will say, enough with this nonsense. He's a receiver.
Yep.
We love him at receiver.
Yep.
No, I'm sorry, Travis. You're not going to play corner.
Listen, that's possible, but to me, it is a red flag if you're drafting a guy and you're going to do something with him that he's already told you he doesn't want to do.
I think what'll happen, and this is funny, because he'll get into camp, somebody will draft him and say you're going to do one thing, and he's going to go out there and make a play, and they're going to say, oh, we got to rethink this.
And that's entirely possible.
That's it. And
so I think the prudent way for teams to measure him is, you like him on offense, grade him as a receiver and slot him appropriately. You like him as a corner, grade him as a corner and draft him appropriately.
If I was him, and I tell you, it's funny because I say Shedeur, I wouldn't worry about throwing the football. If I was him, I would literally work out at receiver and defensive back. And
I don't think he's working out at either at the combine. He's going to do both at his pro day.
But he is categorized as a corner.
And just to mention, in the last 5 NFL drafts, a cornerback has gone 3rd twice. Derek Stingley went in 23 too.
Oh, well, yeah.
And he's a pretty damn good.
He turned out to be good.
I'm
not saying you're right in the big picture. I'm just saying,
it doesn't happen often.
Recently speaking, it has happened twice in the last
year. I do think he's going to be. I think for 1 year, he's going to be super dynamic. Like, he's going to.
I hope so. I'm rooting for the
next
kid.
year.
Like
He's going to be a monster.
I'll give you a little scouting update. Did you get to see Cam Ward at all? Did you spend any time?
No, I didn't see him because we were doing coaches and GMs.
That's right.
I never got to see him.
The Big Ten track and field indoor championships are in Indianapolis, and Corey is there. And this kid is such a nut job when it comes to football. They got into town early yesterday, and they had some time before they were going to work on some training issues. So he said, "I'm going to go over to the combine." So he walks over, and he's just sitting in the stands. I think he might have went with another coach, and they're just watching the workouts. And he said, as I'm going in, I walk by a guy, and he goes, "Oh, damn, that's Cam Ward." So he yells at him. He's like, "Cam!" And he turns around, and Cam's looking at him like, "Who are you? Who the hell are you?" And my son he comes up to him, and they're having a conversation. He's like, "You have no idea who I am. I'm a huge Browns fan. I really hope they take you." He said they had a brief conversation. They shook hands. Corey said he was a lot smaller than he thought in person. My son's 6'2". And he's like, he was not just a little shorter than me. So I don't know if they've actually released the measurables yet.
Quarterback's measuring tomorrow.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I thought it was Friday or Saturday. Corey said, I'm thinking he's more 6 foot, maybe 6.5 inches.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is troubling or if that changes anyone's mindset about him. But he said he felt like he was, he was smaller than he expected.
Shador and Cam Ward are not that big of guys, man. Like they're not huge. And look, man, I'm not gonna lie. I prefer larger quarterbacks.
Will Howard.
I prefer larger quarterbacks. I need somebody to see over this one. I don't like that.
I like 6'5" too. Give me Josh Allen.
How many batted balls do we? That's the most annoying thing in the world. Third down, a batted ball. I would rather you throw an interception.
Well, there were people that changed their mind on Baker because of that. Oh, this dude can't get